The time is just gone 9:35 a.m. We continue with the broadcast this morning. Now, one of the things that India has become famous for is the use of social media for the wrong reasons. And we've seen it over and over again. There have been many instances with regard to fake social media accounts, whether we're talking about Twitter or Facebook. We've seen it last year. It had to do with one of the cricketing teams that were due to tour Pakistan, and there was a fake a Twitter account that was traced to Gujarat, where I think it was a death threat that was issued to one of the Australian cricketers. Now, this has become common practice. We've seen not so long ago the England commentator Nasser Hussain make mention of exactly the same thing, that any criticism of India and you will receive a backlash via Twitter or any of the other social media accounts, second to none. And this is exactly what we are talking about when one looks at the violence that had erupted in Britain, in Leicester, in the inner city. And now we have learned about an estimated 500 inauthentic accounts that call for violence and promoting memes as well as videos that were created by India, by Twitter. Now, this comes through via NDTV News in India, incidentally. And to join us this morning for this discussion, we're joined by restless beings, Mabrur Ahmed. Mabrur, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Jazakallah khair, and so much for joining us now. Against the background of what had actually taken place in Leicester. And once again, we see the abuse, the misuse. We see fake accounts, inauthentic accounts on social media. And this now we've seen what has actually contributed to the violence that had erupted in Leicester not so long ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of you listeners in South Africa, they may not know kind of the context of Leicester. Leicester was, I think, the first city in the whole of the UK that had a majority of non-white residents, and that was about 10 years ago. It's always been a multicultural place. It has a large Hindu, a large Muslim, a large South Asian kind of population. And to be honest with you, it's been, quite harmonious for the past two generations. But this is really something which is quite unusual for Leicester and very unusual for the UK to see kind of Hindu-Muslim kind of, battles taking place. These things don't really happen so much here. So that's for a bit of context. I think obviously when you look at the way that the world has been going in the last few years, and particularly how India has been going in the last few years, in that light, it's not so much of a surprise to see kind of Hindu and Muslim tension, because that's obviously what we've seen and what we've heard across India, and that's the government of the day is almost promoting this type of this type of communalism. But on British shores, it's unheard of. It's quite unnatural.
Well, it certainly is unnatural because if I look at the South African situation, we have lived in the apartheid era in what was known as traditional Indian areas, and where we coexisted, Muslims, Hindus, and people of other denominations, all from India. And we lived, and until now, Alhamdulillah, we live peacefully. But just to look at Leicester again, the same scenario there, but again, external forces and also the use of social media, Twitter, in promoting the type of violence that had unfolded, Mabrur.
Yeah, so I'm kind of building up to your main point. I understand 100% where you're coming from. My first initial, kind of idea is that this is not natural for Leicester. This is unheard of. The second point, obviously, when you start looking at Indian politics and politics around other parts of the world, even in the UK, we see the rise of something known as populism, and populism is essentially two sides of a coin, and people being driven further and further to each side. So, for example, when we had Brexit here in the UK, people were driven to either remain or to leave. And the two kind of the black and white, the dichotomy of these things means that they feel they have a black and white decision to make. And the same sort of thing happens with populism. We see it across the world with the Republicans and Trump in the US. in India with Modi, and in many places around the world, in the UK even, like I said. And I think this is part of a greater narrative of where people of Indian heritage, whether that's Hindu or Muslim, feel like they have a choice to make. They're either anti-Muslim or they're pro-Hindu. And, we're talking about the large majoritarian Hindu population in this instance. And then so far as the Muslims of India are concerned, they also feel like they have a choice to make. They're either pro-government or anti-government. And these black and white choices fuel fire. And of course, the breeding place for fire such as that is social media, as you mentioned.
Yes, and also I think one needs to be careful because we cannot be in our comfort zone. One needs to be watchful because with social media, it does present new opportunities for this populist ideology and to make inroads into societies, and this is something that we need to be extra. We need to be cautious about, but also at the same time to try and prevent this type of practice within our own communities because it could easily spiral out of control.
For sure. And this is coming more towards the report that you mentioned on NDTV, the 500 kind of bot accounts. You see, the thing is, the way social media works is that you end up building up fences around you, so that things that you like, the topics that you're interested in, you create a silo, and it's like building a fence, right? So the more you consume of, say for example, you like football, the World Cup's going on now, so you're watching lots of World Cup different content, you're searching for different things. So you're building a wall around you, a fence around you, which is just purely around about football. And so what happens is when people are, for example, very interested in politics or very interested in their country or very interested in their religion, then they build up a silo around them, and then they become very susceptible for this populism, for this kind of interactions on social media. And of course, bot accounts exist. We've all seen them. We all probably have some following from some bot accounts. Robot accounts are essentially created by marketeers looking to market a particular thing, idea, product, country even. But despite that, we have to be better than that, right? So whenever you might open up your Instagram, you might see, a few of your friends and family stories, and then you'll come across an advert. Just because you see an advert doesn't mean that automatically you're going to go and buy that thing. You still have to make a proactive choice. So that's the same thing with like the way that bots work in Twitter. Just because you're going to see a hate-filled message doesn't mean that you have to act upon it. It doesn't mean that you have to like it. It doesn't mean that you have to retweet it or whatever it might be. So I think, there's definitely some argument that there are bot accounts that could have been set up from, pro-government of India side. It could be set up by, anti-Muslim side. It could be set up from pro-Hindu side. Whichever way that you want to look at it, it could be any of those different groups are setting up these bot accounts. But ultimately, and we have to be very clear, the violence that we saw on the streets of Leicester or across any city, across any part of the world, which looks to defame and to attack people of another religion, whether that's our religion or another religion. They are the actions of an individual. It doesn't matter how many bots are trying to infiltrate your mind. It's still your own personal action. And that's why I split commend what you've just said, is that we have to be more responsible. Absolutely, I 100% agree with that. It doesn't matter how much you are bombarded by marketing. It doesn't matter how much you're bombarded by populism and political information. You still have a decision to make. Are you going to go and hurt an innocent person or not?
Yes, and also I think what is important to understand, and this article speaks about the use of social media by foreign actors, okay? But also at the same time, these are people that we don't know about. These are fake people. These are fake accounts that have been opened. But also people like, for instance, celebrities, because, they have the ability of influencing, and we know what celebrities are like when it comes to India and how people actually look up to them. And of late, we've seen a number of these people, actors, actresses, and singers, openly making a certain position. And this also is something that can become problematic in terms of inflaming an already volatile situation. We know that there were comments by one of the actresses, I think it was Priyanka Chopra. Not long ago, there was this whole Azan issue that was playing out in India. I think it was the singer Sonu Nigam who had made certain comments. Now, these are issues that are also problematic, Mabrur.
Of course, that goes without question. Of course, it's problematic. And the case isn't just with India. You've got to look at the same sort of situation which is happening with Palestinians and with Israel. The same thing happens, where figureheads of popularity and media that we know go ahead and make statements either pro the message that we are or anti the message that we are, and it shocks us. The problem is here, though, and I come back to my last point and essentially your last point as well, is that it doesn't matter who says what, because ultimately our principles are our principles. Individually, our principles are our principles, right? And yes, of course, people are influenced by your big celebrities. We can also say we don't know who the external factors are, and this kind of misinformation or disinformation sometimes can feel like you are fearful of an enemy that you can't see. People who are trying to make your mind susceptible to something, but you don't know who they are. And all of these things, what they do is they actually, and if you don't mind, I'm going to just speak about it very quickly from an Islamic perspective, it weakens our iman. Yeah, and when our iman is weak, then of course we're going to listen to messages, right? And if I take the religious hat off for a second, when we are bombarded by so many messages and we are susceptible to so many messages, then of course we are not going to be able to hold stronger to our principles and to our morals. And so therefore, yes, we can say, celebrities should be made more accountable for the words that they say, but also at the same time, they need to have a freedom of expression, right? So if someone does feel, when, for example, one of the models, I can't remember what her name is, something Hadid, is saying something positive about Palestine, we're not so quick to say that she shouldn't say those things. But the Israeli side will definitely say she shouldn't say those things. So it's difficult for us to pick and choose, who's right, who has the right to say things and who has the right to not say things. And so therefore, what is better for us is for us to say, actually, here are some basic principles of human rights and basic principles of how to behave as a human. And apart from that, the celebrities can say what they want, but the principles must stay the same. So the principles, for example, in the case of Leicester, should be that no community, whether they're Hindu or Muslim, should be attacked. Now, what we do know, I can tell you, I was in the country at the time, I could see it happening. A lot of the people that went to Leicester to attack either the Muslims or the Hindus, both sides, were not from Leicester. There were bus loads of people coming from London up to Leicester. That there is an external factor. Leicester has generally been a lot more stable than other parts of the country. So there's definitely external factors there. Of course they sway and they change the landscape of the argument. But I think one thing, and I'll kind of end on this, is if you look at the way that the situation was resolved in Leicester, that is the thing that gives us all hope. Because what Leicester's always been good at is bringing people together. The Hindu community leaders and the Muslim community leaders stood together, issued a statement saying, it doesn't matter what happens on social media, doesn't matter about any external factors. The Hindu and the Muslim community in Leicester are united and we will stay united. And I think that is the message that we should take.
Well, a very, very profound and powerful message as well, Mabrur. And as always, we do appreciate you taking time out, talking to us here on Salam Media. We wish you all the best. And once again, Jazakallah for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran jazilan. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Mabrur Ahmed joining us out of the UK. We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be joined by Abir Zayed out of Palestine.